Good evening and welcome to our regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Hartford Common Council. All proper notices were sent. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I would like to see you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And welcome back, Shanna.
Thank you. The mayor and all alderpersons are present, with alderpersons Kohler and Waldvogel appearing via Zoom.
Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda is unanimous consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Motion by Alderperson Rusniak, seconded by Alderperson Curley, approving the Common Council minutes of March 24th, 2026.
All right, you have it in front of you. Any further discussion or questions regarding unanimous consent? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. There's nothing under communications. Next item on the agenda is appearances. Anyone wishing to appear? Anyone wishing to appear? Last call. Anyone wishing to appear? Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. I just have one thing to report tonight, and that is on the Mid-Murray Municipal Association meeting that I attended last week at Grafton Village Hall. The featured speaker was 59th District State Representative Robert Brooks. His topic was Assembly Bill 453, dealing with the 2026 housing legislation, specifically the new requirements for municipalities to identify housing density in comprehensive plans and the automatic rezoning triggers for non-compliant plans. This is meant to remove ambiguity on comprehensive plans so developers have a clear idea how dense of a development they can build. They're obviously trying to get development to spur a little bit faster to address the housing. So it was a good meeting. Glad we went. And that's all I have. So item 8 on the agenda is aldermanic requests. President Rusniak?
Well, we had a bit of a storm last night, and there was a lot of confusion throughout the city with blowing the sirens, blowing them late, not blowing them at all, that type of thing. Steve, you want to explain the new protocol as of today on the sirens?
So the situation in which we had was the fact that last night was the first tornado warning we've had in the last 2 years that happened overnight. When we've had them before this, it was during the day when we had people here. So last night we had nobody here because we don't have dispatch anymore. And so rather than, we had it always manually. So when we get the signal from the National Weather Service, manually we would push the button to hit the signals. Unfortunately, because we had nobody here last night, again, Fire Chief Tony Burgart was in the area and was able to go onto his computer from his car and be able to sound the alarm. But again, at that time, it was later than we had hoped. So again, what Tony did this morning is got in touch with our tech support and found out how to switch this all over to automatic. So again, what will happen in the future is National Weather Service will give the signal. The signal will automatically go to the sirens, and the sirens will go off. So we should have no problems from here on out. Just again, a situation in which we unfortunate situation in which again was a byproduct of switching over the dispatch to the county.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. That's all I got.
All right. Alderperson Curley?
Nothing today, Mayor.
Alderperson Waldvogel?
No requests tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Alderperson Garza?
Just one request. As summer is coming, I've noticed people getting their ATVs prepped for all the fun. I'd just like to request if there's a way we can get the maps out there digitally, social media websites. So just a reminder of where they can drive their ATVs within our city.
The ATM map, ATV map is available on our website, but we will put something out on social media tomorrow to remind people where they can.
Awesome, thanks. That's all I
Thank
have.
you. Alderperson Turchi.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderperson Webb.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. I know there was like a lot of work put into the document that's in our agenda about, ways that we can reduce costs, increase revenue. And so I just want to thank all the department heads and everybody that worked on it to put that together. It was very helpful.
Thanks, Justin. Alderperson Kohler.
Nothing tonight.
Alderperson Savage.
I just want to thank all of the supporters that supported us and reelected us. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Alderperson Pekacek.
I'd like to echo Alderman Webb that the work put into these documents took a lot, and everybody, was passionate about certainly spending and budget and stuff. And I had to plant a tree in our name because I printed all of this out, but it was well worth it. It was good reading, and I just want to say, thank you again for the efforts, because this is a team effort here, and we just want to do the best for the staff and the citizens.
Thanks, Tom.
Mayor, can I add one more thing? Before tonight's meeting, Alderperson Curley had asked me to remind everyone, as a part of his communications, that the 2026 fire hydrant flushing schedule is out. The Hartford Water Utility will begin its annual fire hydrant flushing program starting April 27th. Flushing will take place on weekdays between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. We first start with the south of Highway 60 between April 27th and May 22nd, and then the north side of Highway 60, May 18th through June 12th. During this time, some customers may notice temporary rusty or discolored water. This is normal and can typically be cleared by running cold water for a few minutes. Residents are encouraged to avoid doing laundry during flushing hours, as discolored water may stain clothing. Hydrant flushing is an important part of the maintenance of our water quality and system reliability. We appreciate your patience and cooperation during this necessary maintenance of our water mains. For questions or concerns, please contact the Water Utility Department at 670-3710.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve. Then we'll move to item 10 on the agenda, standing committee reports. The first one is finance and personnel.
One item tonight, approving the purchase and configuration of the server to be completed in 2026 by OnTech Systems Incorporated in the amount of $42,994. Our AV director is with us tonight.
Good evening. For those that don't know me, I'm Tiffany. I'm the technology coordinator here, City of Hartford. I am recommending approval of $40,994 awarded to OnTech to proactively replace our domain control server. It is currently out of warranty and no longer able to continue with upgrades. This was unanimously approved also by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Any questions or comments for Tiffany? If not, back to you, Mayor.
Then I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alderperson Webb, second by Alderperson Savage.
Motion by Alderperson Webb, seconded by Alderperson Savage, approving the purchase and configuration of the server to be completed in 2026 by OnTech Systems, Inc. in the amount of $42,994.
All right, any final discussion or questions regarding this? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thanks, Tiffany. Moving on to, looks like item 11 on the agenda, resolutions and possible actions thereon. Resolution number 3767, a resolution authorizing the sale of 12.63 acres of land, a portion of tax key number 36-1804-002-015 to Wisconsin Stamping and Manufacturing LLC. Jacob?
I'll start with this one again. The resolution is to sell 12.63 acres of the 22 acres that falls below the expected extension of Western Drive to Innovation Way. As you remember, back in October, the staff brought forward the idea of extending Western Drive to Innovation Way for the purpose of being able to get access to the 64 acres owned by the HADC. The council at that time chose to wait until we had an actual developer in hand to be able to develop that area. So what we're proposing tonight is multifaceted. So we have an offer to purchase the land. Again, I'll have Jacob pull up that lot. So again, this is 12 acres, of which roughly just under 10 acres is buildable. The other basically 2 to 3 acres would be wetlands to the, I'm going to say west, but it could be south. I don't remember which direction this goes. But anyways, so again, this land would be for DJS Manufacturing, which again is currently located on Cleveland Street in Hartford. They would be moving out of that facility and occupying this new building, which doubles the size of their current spot, and then would give them the opportunity to double their size again. The current amount of employees would be also doubled over time as a part of this developers agreement and also the sale of said property. You'll see all of these have to go in line. So you'd have this property. It was rezoned to industrial, to I.
Correct.
And that was done by you prior to this. We also annexed property to build out Innovation Way extension / Western Drive extension. And then the next step to this would be, again, the sale of the property. Later on in the agenda, you'll be approving the developers agreement. And then also later on in this agenda, you will be looking to take that Innovation Way Western Drive extension to bid that out, that project out with a base bid and then in a additional bid. So Jacob can add more details onto that.
So yes, this was approved by the Plan Commission this past Monday night. Again, because it falls under future right-of-way portions of this property. So that's 62.23 paren 5 of the Wisconsin State Statutes, and then this was just approved by the Personnel and Finance Committee to move forward. Again, this is, as Steve said, it was rezoned to, actually it's M2, which is the industrial one. I is institutional. That's my mistake on that one. And then, again, we annexed that portion of the land swap we did with the Rattler Farm to allow for the extension. This is part of that southern 20 acres of HADC land.
I'll remind you that the HADC basically is a holding company for all land. And HADC purchased this property from the Rattler family many, many years ago. And now, again, is dividing it up in these different areas. Tom Hosted, the executive director of the HADC, is here and can explain more of that.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening. As Steve indicated, we purchased the land in 2009, so we have been holding this land for 17 years, and it was part of our plan to use the land to expand the Dodge Industrial Park. So this particular sale will fit that intended use and application. Wisconsin Stamping is buying the land, and one of their subsidiaries, DJS Manufacturing, a local company, is going to use the land to expand their existing facility. They're landlocked right now up on Cleveland Avenue, so they plan to build an 80,000 square foot building with the possibility of expansion up to 160,000 square feet in the future. The plan also calls for adding jobs, near 50 jobs over the next 5 years as they continue to grow and expand. So this will be a great opportunity for Hartford to keep a business here that's been in our community for years, started here as a matter of fact, and they want to grow here. So I am here tonight to ask for your support and approval of this request to purchase the land and then the subsequent developers agreement as well. With me tonight is our board president, Matt Schweckel, who is Senior Vice President and Director of Commercial Lending at Bank 59. And also Craig Zeller is in the audience, another one of our board members who's the owner of Zeller Transportation. And Matt has a couple of comments about how this was transacted at the board level. Matt?
Thanks, Tom. So, yes, our board of directors had an opportunity to review the offer to purchase from Wisconsin Stamping and Manufacturing. We looked at this as a tremendous opportunity. It's an existing Hartford business that's looking to grow, reinvest in our community. So our board voted unanimously to recommend approval of the offer to purchase, which is before you all tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything further on it, Steve, or no?
I think that's all I had.
All right, so you have a resolution in front of you. Any questions or comments for staff? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Motion.
Not all at once.
Motion by Justin. Why am I? And then you're taking the second.
I'll take the second.
Thanks.
It's fine.
Thanks, Jeff.
I'll defer to Justin. That's fine.
You're pointing at him.
Yeah, right.
All right, so motion by Alderperson Webb, second by Alderperson Turchi.
Motion by Alderperson Webb, seconded by Alderperson Turchi for the adoption of proposed resolution number 3767.
Thanks, Shanna. All right, any final discussions or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Resolution passes. Second resolution on tonight's agenda is a resolution authorizing the City of Hartford to enter into a developers agreement with Wisconsin Stamping and Manufacturing LLC.
Okay, so this is the second step to this, is again, once we have the offer to purchase and that has been approved, the next part to this is a developer's agreement. The developer agreement would be between the City of Hartford and, again, Wisconsin Stamping and Manufacturing. The developer's agreement basically lays out there is an incentive to the developer for this project that would be paid through the TID, a TID development of TID 14, which would not only encompass this 12 acres, would encompass the entire 22 acres to the south of the road construction, and then also the development to the north of that. That'd be a 60-some acre parcel that will be a development for multifamily and single-family process, but you'll hear more about that in the coming months. So this project, this developer's agreement basically is put together with help from Christian Teschlock of Economic Development in Washington County. He would then take the information that provided and then take a look at that and create a pro forma that would basically lay out to make sure that this TID would financially work out for both parties. And so I asked Christian to come forward and talk more about the thought process that goes into that.
Good evening. Thank you. So first of all, we really take a look at three components when it comes to determining whether or not the deal structure makes sense for the taxpayer. The first component is the ability of the company to execute essentially on the project, and that the project itself, as conceived, delivers the requisite revenue that would actually sustain the TID and cover its share of the public improvements that are necessary, the public infrastructure. What's really neat about this project is we have quite a bit of previous experience with Wisconsin Stamping on other projects in Washington County. And this is a company, and the leadership of that company are a company that under-promises and over-delivers typically based on other projects. So when we take a look at that and our past underwriting efforts, we have a high degree of confidence relative to the company's ability to deliver. We then ran their project through two different models. Both models came up with very similar results. Yes, there are assumptions that are built into these models for sure, but we take a very conservative view of those. Just as one little example, while we understand what the capital investment will be to construct the building, we actually only take 75% of that when we go to determine valuation, for example. So we really try to take a very conservative view of any of the numbers so that what we're looking at is upside potential. And with that, both models, as I mentioned earlier, produced really the same result, which is to say that we do have more than sufficient coverage to address the public improvements that are necessary to essentially unlock this particular site and the surrounding development area. Another aspect that we look at is the return on investment for the taxpayer, and for that we've got a unique tool that we deploy, and we want that to align very closely with, hey, is there excess resources to, one, meet the needs of the TID, but also to meet the needs of the incentive or incentives that we would be potentially putting together for this deal. And as it relates to the TID, we were able to confirm with this model as well that there is, after incentives, a net positive across all of the taxing bodies that is sufficient to cover, again, any public sector improvements that are contemplated as a part of this project. So not only are we making an appropriate investment of public resources, that those resources are generating a net positive benefit to the taxpayer. That's basically revenue exceeding any costs associated with the deal. Our modeling uses real-time information coming from your current budgets to determine cost features for it. So we feel very confident in our results, and other projects have proven to be pretty well spot on. Again, barring conservative assumptions that we've deployed. Last but not least, we want to take a look at not just can this perform so that the public infrastructure can be met. Not only does the TID generate a return on investment for the taxpayer, but lastly, is the incentive in alignment with what you would expect deals of this size to essentially earn? And the answer to that was yes, it was in alignment. It's definitely an aggressive play, but for this particular company that, as I said, under promises and over delivers, it's extremely appropriate and not outside the bounds of what we would see in terms of other projects of a similar size. So it passed all three tests from our standpoint, and we will also be supporting this project with our resources as well.
Great.
For those that don't know about economic development in Washington County, they are independent, basic economic development pseudo-arm for Washington County. They're not a part of Washington County, but they're the ones who everybody in Washington County looks to do these types of pro formas and also give advice regarding development projects. So our thanks to Christian for helping us out with this project. We also look forward to him working with us on the project that will be to the north of that road as well. Any questions for Christian?
Oh, thank you for stepping in and doing that. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate the opportunity.
Good information.
So you're set.
So we will need approval of the resolution then.
So
So
are
a
we asking
motion by,
questions?
Alderperson Pekacek?
Oh,
Go ahead. I couldn't hear.
He didn't hear you.
So I have a motion by Alderperson Pekacek. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
A second by Alderperson Curley.
Motion by Alderperson Pekacek, seconded by Alderperson Curley for the adoption of proposed resolution number 3766.
All right, any final discussion or questions?
Yeah, so what are we exactly agreeing to here then, right? We want to go into the, is this opening up TID number 14 then? Is that what we're asking for?
Yeah, so TID number 14, this would be one part of TID number 14 as far as the development goes. This would also be one of the ways in which we were able to financially help pay for that road extension. And then also there's incentives to the company to, again, expand their footprint in the city, adding additional employees, and again, all based on the progress they make and what they are able to deliver on.
So then on this TID then, basically it's a deferred taxes, right? So what are we, and I'm just asking these questions because the question came up last month when you talk about, how many TIDs do we have? And, we're looking at the budget, right? And some further agenda items up front. So what is this how is this going to impact the initial position that we're in with, again, not collecting money on taxes when we move forward with these TIDs?
Again, one of these, there's a couple things. First of all, the eventual growth of the community will be based on these types of developments. While in a TID for the first 10 to 20 years, or even 23 years, some TIDs can go as far as 23 years, that you'll not capture that. But where you capture it is in the ability to make or pay for a public improvement. So in this situation, the public improvement is the development of Innovation Way Extension to Western Drive. So without that, you're paying cash for this project. Instead, what we're doing is we're looking to borrow for this project and then have the TID pay our debt on this project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and as we mentioned at a previous meeting as well, this is an investment in our community, allowing us to move forward and do things like this. So again, a super step forward. Any other further discussion or questions? Seeing none, there is a motion and a second. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Resolution passes. One thing I'd like to add, I know it's not a part of the vote, but the fact is, Jacob just reminded me of it, that the TID, the tax incrementing district, the geographic area, a large portion of that is the wastewater treatment plant. So we get no revenue off of that. I mean, we don't get any taxes off of that anyway. So it's not a huge loss to us in that situation. Thanks for the additional information. Thanks, Jacob. All right, we have no ordinances under tonight's meeting, so we move on to the city administrator's report. First thing under that is the discussion and consideration to review and potentially amend the approved 2026 to 2030 CIP budget. Steve? So at the last council meeting, it was brought up and asked if we could review what has been already approved for the 26 through 2030 CIP budget. And so in your packets, you have a copy of what has been approved over the next 5 years. I apologize, let me pull up my copy off of the. Did you all receive a copy of the executive summary of the CIP budget? Mm-hmm. Okay. Hold on. Thank you. Okay, so again, in August, when we normally will, August or September, we will approve the CIP budget. So the concept of approving a CIP budget is you are approving all the expenditures within that budget for the next 5 years. Now, again, this can be changed from year to year. As you'll see, some of the costs will go up. Some of these items might be removed. Some of the items might be added, so that's why every year you're approving, even though you've already approved it once, twice, or up to five times. So the existing 2026, 2027 budget, I'll just focus on those two things. You'll notice that we had a total debt, GO debt of $7.2 million in 2026, which included the $4.9 million firehouse, the second firehouse. In 2027, you have an additional $3.4 million in general obligation debt for projects that will be occurring in 2027. So when we go to bonding, which will happen in roughly 4 weeks, We will be bonding for those items that you've already approved under the budget. And again, any additional bonding that we need included, which would be including the street extension project, which we will be talking about coming up shortly. When we do that, again, you'll be going to we'll take those dollars or take those figures, and then they will go for sale on those bonds. And then we do that on a Monday, and then the following Tuesday, you have a council meeting in which you will approve the final bonds sale. At that meeting, as you know, Jeff will appear before this group. Jeff Belanger from Huntington will be here to explain what the sale resulted in. Then he will also show you how he's structuring that debt. And I kind of take an example of what we have here, which you all had on your place in front of you. The structuring of the debt is basically a process by which you look at the debt figures for the future and then fill in the gaps or fill in the areas in which you have debt coming off, and then you can add new debt added to that. Most of our debt is going to be a 10-year debt, so most of our street projects will be a 10-year debt. We have some minor short-term debt, which includes for squad cars. We borrow that basically for 1 year because you only keep them for 3 years. But everything else, again, is normally 10 years. On occasion, we've had buildings, which will be 20 years. In the case of 2026 bonding, we'd be probably looking at a hybrid approach of about a 15-year bonding because, again, there's a building that's 20-year bonding, and then you have the rest of it, which is normally 10 years. So somewhere between 13 and 15 years. But as you noticed, talking with Jeff about the amount of bonding that we're looking to do for 2026, you're looking at really no major increase in our levy for debt in 27. We'd actually level that off at 3.3 million, which is the same as it's been for the last 5 years. In 2029, you'd finally see an increase of about 300,000 onto the bond. I want to remind you, too, that the city of Hartford is in a very good position when it comes to debt. As you know from our audit, we are allowed by state statutes up to a 5% debt ratio. We are currently at 1.05, so we could borrow a whole lot more under state statutes before we would actually hit our limit. And yes, there are communities, even communities nearby, that have already hit their limit. So we do a very good job of trying to level off, which kind of goes back to a question that you had, Wayne, is why do we pick the amount of street that we have versus just finish off the street versus doubling the size? Is because we always try to keep that amount of debt relatively equal every 2 years. As you know, we only borrow every even year. So 24, 26, our next bond borrowing would be in 2028. So that's what that is about. So I want to kind of bring this forward. Again, you all have the sheets in front of you of what's being borrowed. Again, borrowing is not the only way we have CIP. We do have some that are paid for by TIDS. As we just talked about, the road extension would be for Western Drive to Innovation Way would be paid for through the TID bonding or through TID. You have grants and aids. Another thing that I want to remind you too is that one of the biggest expenditure there, the fire station, while $4.9 million, within the next 4 to 8 weeks, we'll find out if we actually will receive a grant to help to offset that cost. You approved us to go to apply for a grant, which is called a non-state grant, which is primarily for safety. And so we asked for $2 million to help offset this cost. Again, we will not know the results of that for the next probably 4 to 8 weeks. But we hope to find out how much of that money we possibly get to offset the cost of that firehouse. So with that, I'll open up for any questions you may have.
What are the odds of getting that grant? I mean, do we have a good chance at it, or?
I have no idea. This is the first time I've ever applied for the non-state grant. We've had safety grants a lot. I mean, if you remember, I think our last fire truck, Chief might be able to reiterate on that one. I think the last fire truck we got was through a safety grant that Paul Stevens was able to get for us, which was about $1 million grant for that. So, I mean, it's, I know I competed against 3 or 4 of my
colleagues
for like Village Hall, Park. So it's all out there.
Fire station sounds more important.
I would think.
We hope.
I am hoping.
Dean?
Back in 2022, when the discussion of a firehouse first came up, you folks did an analysis of the desire to build a new fire station. And included in this report, there were 3 different topics that you were going to look into and get back to future councils as to the feasibility of some of these other projects to be incorporated in the fire station. They were a technical center, I believe, a technical college, looking at other municipalities and going together, and I forget what the third one was. But I never saw any results of the work that was to be done in regard to these projects.
So, well, you voted against it. The technical center decided to have their training center at a different location, and you passed it through a referendum for Marine Park Technical College to expand their locations in West Bend, Beaver Dam, and Fond du Lac. So because the referendum passed, they decided to expand their own buildings and do that. So that's one of the things that we were not able to obtain. So that answers that one. What were the other options?
Consolidation.
Remember, consolidation, I believe, was another one. But anyways, somebody pulled a number out of the air for $2.4 million for the initial price tag on a fire station. And now it's gone up to, it doubled to 4.8 million, then 4.9 million. And I still haven't seen a justification for why we even need one. And certainly, where are the plans for the proposed building?
Well,
We haven't seen plans, we haven't seen a general contractor named for the building, and you want us to go ahead with a $4.9 million bonding item. I just can't see it. You know, our taxpayers got kicked in the teeth last year with the 2 school districts coming up with a 12.54% increase to property taxes. And I just don't think our citizens can stand getting kicked in the teeth again.
Well, I'm confused by the verbiage you're using.
Steve, I don't think we need another firehouse.
Well,
it's about as plain as I can make it.
So the first thing I'll say is the firehouse study was done in 2024. It came out, I believe, in 2025, or maybe it was in 2024 when the study came out. That study, which we shared with you, showed the need for an additional house. The second part to that was it was asked actually in the study where would the best location be, and again at that time the report came back that something on the eastern edge that also had better access down to the south where we serve both the town of Hartford and the town of Erin. And let me also share a couple things. Again, this isn't the first time we've talked about the firehouse, as you mentioned, and I'll give you a little history behind this.
Yes.
again, the city council of Hartford has been looking at this well beyond what we're stating in this sheet. I simply went back to my experience with this. So I'll go back to September 14th of 2021. The council at that time approved the CIP with construction of a second firehouse at $1.7 million for 2026. Again, at that time, Paul Stevens had discussed this with a designer who felt, again, it would be able to be done at $1.7 million. What they did not do at that time was look at the infrastructure within the building that would be needed under the current codes for a firehouse. On November 9th, 2021, the council approved the purchase of the Regan property for that second firehouse. So we've talked about this, and again, the council went ahead and approved $225,000 to be pulled from the fund balance to pay for that property. Later on in September of 22, they approved again the CIP budget, this time the $2.4 million firehouse. In January 10th of 2023, the design proposal was approved for the shower drive extension, which would be serving the firehouse. And again, this was done by Parish Survey and Engineering for a total cost of $8,000. Then the council approved the CIP again in September of 2023 for $2.4 million. You flip over the page. The following year, the council approved the firehouse for $2.4 million, again to be built in 2026. In 2024, the council approved the bid to design the second firehouse. That's $182,000 with 5 Bugles design. Then in August 26th of 25, you were presented an updated cost to the firehouse of $4.9 and had requested staff to look at adding a 4th bay, which would increase the cost. So again, at that time, the council understood that $4.9 million, it was the new cost, and actually asked to add additional to that. Later on in August, again, the council approved it at $4.9 million. And then November of that year, the council approved the bid to construct shower drive extension at $361,000. That again was done in fall of last year and will be finished this spring. And finally, in 2025, or February of this year, the mayor's firehouse building committee requested some changes to the design, which is flipping the building and adding a 4th bay. So they have seen parts of the design, not the total every square inch of it yet, as they are finishing that up right now. They're probably at about 80%, and I'll ask the chief to join me on this, but I could be wrong on, I think they're about 80%. And again, that additional cost is additional $35,000. So this concept is not new. It's not something that has been brought up never before, but again, has been approved by this council for the last 5 years and has so far cost the city $811,000. Again, I'm going to reiterate the need for the house and the location of the house was something a part of that plan, which was not only approved by this council or members of the council, but again, was brought forward at that time. So any other questions?
Yes. So I don't disagree with what we've done. I don't disagree with the path that we're going down. What I will say, though, is I honestly disagree with the direction it's going, though. And when I say that, if you look at it, it talks about a satellite, not the main. You're talking about getting rid of the EMS center, doing this, doing that, so on and so forth. And at the time, with the information that we were given and going into all this, we didn't hit your perfect storm, and where this is going to hit the taxpayer as a one-time possible levy, your referendum that you're going to ask us to pass to fix the one-time storm, so that we're going to increase the levy limit for internally. That's where this question comes in, as well as it also brought up a lot of attention now as we get closer and we are listening to our constituents saying, why do we have it? What are we doing? And there's other questions that we asked of we talked about building, but what didn't come in and what we've seen up to this point is all the added headcount, full-time employees, so on and so forth. And the question that I asked, and I don't see in any of the paperwork and any of the documents that we did there, is what if we outsourced EMS? I don't disagree with the process we went. I'm disagreeing with the timing we're doing it right now. And I think that's where we're at this point.
I guess, and again, I will be quite honest. I feel like sounds like as though this was an idea of me and Tony sitting in the back of the fire department and coming up and scheming this idea, but it's not been that at all. The council has been a part of this process the entire way. And while not all the council members have been here the entire time, many of you have. And to that, I can understand the concept that 2026 is a very tough year to be doing this when we have a shortfall. And we'll talk more about the contracting out EMS service at a agenda item down the list here. In about 3 agenda items, we'll be talking more about that. But again, I want to be very clear. This is not something that has been just recently brought up. Again, this council was well aware at the last meeting in which the designer actually was here and presenting back in whatever month that was, when they first brought forward the idea that the future cost was in August 26th of 2025. The designer said right there that because of what we need to do for this building and the building codes involved in it, again, the cost was going to go up to 4.9.
Were you going to have Tony go ahead and explain why we were looking at going into having a second firehouse? Or why was Tony brought up?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mayor? I can't.
Were you going to have Tony do a presentation on?
Say something, Tony.
Well, while he's here, you might as well talk.
Tony's there for support, I believe.
Say something, Tony.
Do you want to jump in at Justin? Just
Yeah.
Before we
Look,
stroll.
I fully support building this fire station. I agree. Like, we have talked about this for years. We have sunk costs effectively in this at this point in time. If we don't build this, it's going to cost more money in the future. Like, the price has already gone up by double in 5 years since we started talking about this. It inevitably will go up even higher. I agree that this is like, the timing sucks on this because we're in sort of a crunch, but that's sort of like a separate situation of its own making. The things they just look bad together, but they're sort of not inexorably intertwined. And so I guess my question is, we have an agenda item in front of us. What are we actually voting on? Are we voting to modify the budget and not approve the firehouse?
Well, again, it was asked by Alderperson Curley to bring this back up tonight. And so I want to be very, very clear again on my thoughts and feelings regarding this situation and how it's been presented back to the staff. But the bottom line is if the council tonight says we would like to amend the CIP budget to remove any one of these items, I don't care if you want to remove a street. I mean, first of all, you can't remove any of the streets you've already approved. But if there's anything on here you want to remove off of what you've already approved, because again, the timing in your mind seems wrong, you have to do so with a 2/3 vote. It's not a simple majority. It's by law, you have to amend a budget, it's 2/3 vote. But speak now or forever hold your peace, because if not, we are following the clear directives of the council to borrow this amount of money, plus any additional money that again has been approved, when we go to bonding in 4 weeks.
Tony, could you just, I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Couple of things on my mind, Steve. I've been here for all of it. Most of us have been. And we were all for it, right? We all went through the studies. We all went through that, right? I think the biggest thing, or the variables that have changed, are the circumstances that we're in that we'll talk about later, right? That's one thing we have to consider. And the other item is that we went from
Out online.
2.5 million to 4.9 million. It was discussed during the approval of the budgets during that time, right? So now we're in this dilemma where, to Justin's point, probably is not going to get any cheaper, right? We're going to have to do something someday, right? Because it's warranted and necessary. It's just a tough time for us to say, oh, by the way, we're just going to spend another $2-3 million to make this happen. When we were all under the assumption for a long period of time, as you went back all the way through, what was it, 2021, that it was less than 2 million, then it was 2.5, and now all of a sudden, over the last year, it's gone from 2.5 to 4.9 million. And I get it, right? I mean, a lot of us are in business, prices are escalating, right? So the question is it going to cost us more later? Or are prices going to stable and then there might be some deflation, and we'll get to that, right? So to kind of sum this up is that I'm looking at what we've done in debt for a long time. Generally, we do about 3.5, right? 3.5 million, give or take. That's kind of like
Per year?
Yeah, right. That's kind of the running rate, right?
Yeah, and actually, if you look on your debt budget, you're looking at anywhere from, I mean, recently we've been doing, in '24 we did 5.2. In '22 we did 3.3. In '22, I'm sorry, we did 3.7. In 2020 we did 4.7. So it's been roughly anywhere from 3.7 to 5.2 million dollars recently.
Okay. So my question is that obviously, we come in and here's your CIP and it's a 5-year thing and here's what we want to do. We kind of laid it out, but then we get a chance at the apple because we approve debt service, right, every 2 years, right? So we talked about that a little bit as well because this firehouse $5 million, right, and we had to swallow that. So my question is, with the fire station, with the proposed new building, right, that's on there as well, right? We talked about that as well. I think that's like a $2 million building, right? Don't hold me on those numbers, right?
Well, I'm sorry, what building was it?
There was a building that we were talking about, right? Consolidations of one, like a building. Parks building.
Parks
building,
right?
okay.
That's a couple million at the top of my head, right? So my question is, as we go from 0 and we increase these things, right? 5 million and another 2 million. How does that affect the levy? Because as we borrow, that affects the levy, does it? Well, it affects the taxes, right?
Yeah,
It
so-
really doesn't affect, right? It's a change to the tax base.
Yeah, so
So how
again,
much is this going to cost us roughly as a community if we don't amend it, right? Are we talking, what's the change?
yeah, so that's why I have this debt schedule in front of you. And I apologize, I don't think the two, Alderperson Kohler or Alderperson Waldvogel received a copy of this because we handed it out tonight. But again, this is including the debt that we're looking to take on, including the debt for the TID project, even though the TID project is going to be reimbursed by the TID. So that's really no impact on the taxpayer. But if you look at how it's structured, in 2027, as I mentioned before, your mill rate for debt on levy will not go up. In 2028, again, really not going up. I mean, it's 52,000 will mean minimal to the taxpayer. 3.8 in 2029 is the first time you're going to see a major increase. I mean, that's $500,000 increase. Now, in the next 2 years, things can change. We could, again, different things could happen. We could be removing, in 2 years, we could be removing things from your CIP budget. But if we just simply follow the CIP budget moving forward, you would not see an increase in debt on levy until 2029.
Roughly, what's that look like? Or do we have to come back to that?
Yeah, so it's your mill rate, and I apologize, I would have to run the numbers on it. Yeah, I don't even want to give you a number at this point in time. In 2029, you're probably looking at, I always remembered it being roughly about every 10 cents was, or every
Get it right, Steve.
every dime mill rate would be another 100,000. So you're looking at about 50 cents on the mill rate. And again, based on the mill rate at that time, you might get back up to $5 mill rate. Right now we're 4.57, right? So you might get to $5 in 2029, but again, don't quote me on this and don't contact Washington County Insider because she will actually do a fact check on it, but I'd have to run the numbers on that.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been nice to have something to kind of level set what this is going to cost us. Do you know what I mean? Because we are increasing the debt, and then we're looking at other things as well that might increase taxes as well later on the night. So, yeah. So that's my issue.
And these numbers assume that we don't get that grant. Is that correct?
Correct. Nothing else changes and we don't get a grant.
Yeah, okay.
Tom?
That was my question. If I'm late coming to the party. I've been looking at dates when I was actually on the council here, and Tony did give me some information which was helpful. I'm wondering, do we just table this until because you're supposed to hear about that grant in about 4 weeks, and if we are going to get that grant, that changes again the direction we're going or how much we would have to make a decision on. So I'm just wondering if we should just hold off until we have that in front of us. Is that germane to this or not?
We're getting dangerously tight on time because we need to get to bonding as soon as possible to be able to get the money to do the projects you've already approved.
Okay.
So we're kind of getting tight on that situation. I guess the other question I would have is if it is the feeling of the council, three quarters of the council, just that no matter what happens, you don't want the firehouse. Speak now or forever hold your peace, because even if I get the grant, I mean, first of all, I would want to tell the state or the non-state grant people that we would turn down any grant that they give us. But then also the fact is we would be able to go to bonding and know that no matter what happens, we're not gonna be bonding for that. So the answer to the question is we could wait 4 weeks, but it really on 4 weeks from tonight, you're supposed to be approving. We were supposed to do the bonding tonight, but because of the request to hold on the Capitol, we pushed it off another 1 week because now our next meeting is next week. But then Jeff could not attend that meeting, and so we pushed it off another 3 weeks after that. So that's the reason 4 weeks later before we go to bonding.
Tony, since you sat there, can you just reiterate the importance of why we feel this fire department is warranted?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So going back, and maybe Alderman Curley and Rusniak would remember this, there was actually some land that was purchased in the late 1980s by the city for a second firehouse. My understanding from then, Chief Bob Baus had purchased something near Highway 60 and Wayside Drive when that Wayside was shut down and no longer in service. My understanding is that it was held for about 10 years under the city ownership, and then due to a shortfall in funding and the inability to move forward with other projects, that land was then sold. So Chief Bob Baus had worked for a period of time on continuing to look for building an additional firehouse, even knowing then in the 1980s there was a need to expand and grow. As the Hartford Rescue Squad was built up in 1976, it was very apparent the need for additional service to our citizens was needed, and that's when that EMS building was stood up and put into service as well. When Chief Bob Baus had retired and then Paul Stevens had moved in, Paul had worked on trying to continue that plan, especially with the growth to the east, and trying to figure out where would a good spot be to grow. They had looked at adding on to the current firehouse. So as a reminder, where the current EMS building is, that was where the steam was generated for all of downtown Hartford. There's a steam generation plant. And the waste site for all that coal is where the fire station is. So all that went into the ground, that steam plant was shut down, and they had to reclaim that soil, pull it all out, and said, let's build a fire station here. So in the 1950s, they put a fire station on that site. And how you can tell is by walking in the fire station doors, looking at the apparatus bay, and a multitude of 2-inch holes where it's been mud jacked several times because the soil is slightly soft. Chief Stevens had followed through in a plan with the council's approval to add on to the station. 2004 was completed in 2005 to add the first dorm rooms to the fire station. Knowing that full-time staff was coming, we needed the space for it. So the maximum amount of space that could be added to that site without falling into the river or slumping further into the ground was added onto the back. What did that give us? That gave us at the time 4 dorm rooms and a conference room in the back and a space that was a washroom that's now been converted into a back office space, along with 3 additional apparatus bay spaces. But that pretty much maxed out that space. The original plans for that fire station were to possibly make it a 2-story building. But due to the soil quality, it could support a 1-story building, and that was it. So I know someone had asked about, could we simply add on to the current fire station? We could, but we'd have to take the East Coast approach and put pile drivings down to bedrock to support something substantially larger, not to mention relocating us in a Wauwatosa-style fashion where we move into some kind of Quonset hut or a pole shed or something for a 2-year period of time until that site would be completely demolished. So I believe the answer was it just was not cost effective. It was cost prohibitive to do that. So Chief Stevens moved forward from that and said, we need to continue planning moving forward. What else did we do? He had that study done that was referenced that Alderman Curley had brought up. Thank you for bringing that up, which talked extensively about EMS billing strategies. Why are we talking about that with this building? It explained why we got to where we were from the last council meeting, where the amount of revenue that we were bringing in was no longer carrying the weight of the EMS department 100% anymore. That cost going up and the revenues coming in were no longer balancing out. So that report talks explicitly about that. If you have copies of that, please read that. It is very, very good information that talks about how we got to where we are today. And in last year when we closed that 599 account and moved into the 100 general fund. So moving forward, back to 2021 with that study. The study had agreed that moving to the east was the best location. Keep with that thought process, only a half mile from where Wayside Drive is located. And then that property, the Regan property, was located on Highway K. The city snapped at that opportunity. So the current needs, why are we looking to build a firehouse today? It's the growing the growing city, the growing citizens, and my understanding in that the 2030 plan.
Unfortunately, I think we're a third.
What's that? Okay, sorry. That the city's 2030 plan includes growing the population from 16,000 to 20,000 people. With growing population must come increased services, whether it be police, fire, EMS, roads, water, any utility. There's an increased need for service that comes along with those citizens. Chief Stevens knew, and Chief Bob Baus before him, that we needed to expand and prepare. We know that we can't afford day one to do everything together, right? We can't stand up a new fire station and hire all the full-time people or have additional paid part-time staff to stand it up day one. It takes a phased approach to make that happen, and this is absolutely the best next step to approach a phased move forward with a second station. I'll stop there, Mayor.
Actually, just one other thing. Wasn't there, by having the fire department on the east side like that, having better response time, wasn't there some sort of rating that's related to that?
Yes, that is correct. So there's something known as an ISO score, Insurance Services Organization. They provide insurance ratings on buildings, primarily businesses. And any business that falls within the improved ISO score can see reduced insurance rates. And anything that's closer by road miles plus closer to a fire hydrant would absolutely benefit from having the lowest rating and best by their numbers, low insurance rates as well.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So I went over all this as well. So I guess I'm going to add my 2 cents. Basically, we had this capital improvement line item put on the agenda at Alderperson Curley's request, just to see what expenses the city has that we may not have had that's going to affect taxpayers. But as Steve also alluded to or mentioned, that the city's capacity for debt is actually much higher than this. And actually, the reason that we're having a budget issue is because of the levy, the operational portion. It's not the CIP budget. The CIP budget, we have gone over, we have approved, and it's actually in good shape, and I think it's a good thing to stay with, even though, like Justin said, the timing might not look so great because of the other issues that we're facing, but unfortunately or fortunately, it's separate from the thing that we need to address, which is the operational budget.
Yeah, but
Our operation, or the city's taxes, come down to 4 things. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. It was the operation budget, debt levy, the library, and the taxi, correct? So those are the 4 things that the city portion of the debt get applied to. As we stand now, the CIP, the library, and the taxi are fine. It's the operational budget. So the reason we couldn't address the operational budget is because we cannot raise taxes because of state law. It's a levy. We cannot increase the levy. The levy could only increase by, what was it, $75,000 this year?
Yeah, 73,000 and a 1.3% increase in net new construction.
So, you know, whether he likes the term or not, it was a perfect storm. We had decreased revenue and increased expenses at the same time, causing this problem. The easy solution for us would have been to go to referendum to cover this gap for this time frame until we can get back to where we were. Because again, the timing just stunk. But hey, this is why we're here, sitting here, going over all this stuff, because we are responsible for the taxpayers' money. So that's what we're doing. The CIP budget, as I see it, is fine. We approved it already. We reiterated the importance of having the fire department. That's why we approved it in the first place. So again, this is why I want to keep that intact. Again, it's separate from the problems we're having, and I think to leave it in the shape it's in right now is probably our best course of action, especially since we can get the bonding done right away. And like I said, Jeff does a great job for us. And Steve's, like I said, the way he has structured the debt, wow, it's hardly an effect on the taxpayer at all up until 2029. And if I do my math right, it's only about a $150 increase on a $300,000 home come 2029. So yes, it's an increase. It's, you know, not one we like to see, but to our needs as a city, as we grow, and we've kept taxes low for so long, and we've done so well, you know, sometimes it's time to pay up a little bit more to make sure that we keep the status of living that we've had in the city of Hartford. So these are the things that I wanted to get across to everyone. I think the CIP budget is fine. This is really a non-issue on the agenda, but because an alderman requested that we go over it to see if we wanted to make any changes, I said, okay, we'll do that. I just don't think it's necessary. Jeff, you had something to add?
Help me out some more, Steve, if you can. So on 2029, it jumps to $500,000? And then
Correct.
in 2030, it goes up about 300? Then it kind of levels out.
As it's structured, it goes from 3.3 to 3.8 in 29, and then 4.2, and then levels off between 4.2 and 4.5 for till 2034.
Right, so it's exponential, right? Right, if it's 150 for 500, if that's the math, then another 300 is another 150. right? It just keeps going, doesn't it?
That was.
I can't.
Right, is that right? I just want to make sure I understand math here. Right?
I
mean, I
can't
did
confirm.
graduate college, but sometimes math is hard. I get that.
$150 was on 3 million, not 300,000.
And you said 150 on a $300,000.
Correct.
$300,000.
But it was because of it was because of the increase in 2029.
I get it. I get that. $150 rough.
But then it stays
Right, but then-
almost level after that.
No, it goes up another 300,000.
Yeah, it
then it
goes
kind
up-
of, yeah. So
based,
they could, yeah.
based on how this is structured in 2030, you'd see it go from 3.8 to 4.3 roughly, and then stay relatively stable for the next 5 years.
Correct. So it's not just $150 like the mayor indicated. It's going to be more.
Yeah.
And these are rough numbers, right? We're just giving some context to what this means. We're not, like Steve said, nobody hold us to these numbers, but it goes up. Then it levels off. It's not just a one-time, right, as it increases, because we're adding other things like the building and other things that filter in over the course of the time, right? So we're incurring more debt, right, service debt as we go, because there's a need, quote unquote, a need for these things. So I just want to make sure that it's not just a one-time.
Dennis?
Well, Dean, go ahead.
Jeff, what's the most current figure that we've gotten on the possible PFAS cleanup? Is it still 16 million, or has it gone up to 20?
So you're asking the utility chair to throw out a number. I don't want to do that right now, because that's all under consideration, and I don't think that's appropriate at this time. So
But that would also
I'm
be-
going to defer on that.
But that would also be put into the CIP for bonding to clean up those wells.
No.
I don't
No?
think that's the case.
No, that's a
Yeah.
utility.
That's utility, so.
But it's still debt to the city.
It's debt to the utility, not to the city.
Yeah, somehow that will be charged.
So what
It'll
would
be a
happen?
charge, But I don't want to go into the numbers yet, because it hasn't been really.
So a debt on
disclosed.
utility goes to the utility. The utility costs could rise because of debt, but again, that's immaterial to this topic.
Justin?
I mean, last thing I'll say is if we were building a pool or expanding the library or, I don't know, adding a larger rec center or something, I think those things would be a little harder to justify. But we're talking about another fire station, something that allows us to provide the best care to citizens of the city. And so I think if there's anything that we should keep, this is the thing. So that's the last thing I'll say.
Wayne?
So I think what scared us on this whole thing, 3 weeks ago, Steve, pardon?
Go ahead, Wayne.
Sorry.
Okay. 3 weeks ago, Steve threw a scare into us with an anticipated budget deficit of almost $1 million. Now, if you read your executive summary later tonight, they found some solutions to not worry too much about that $1 million anticipated budget. But when Dean, I know, talked to me about the budget deficit coming up and 4.9 million for fire station, it kind of scared the bejeebers out of everybody. Said, wow, 4.9 million. But now that we've got some tentative solutions coming up later tonight, 4.9 million probably doesn't look so bad. Because if we delay this till next year, it'll be 5.2. If we delay it 2 years, it'll be 5.5. So somewhere along the line, we're going to build a satellite fire station. Probably the sooner the better. So I fully support the fire station.
Joe?
Yes, so just so you guys all know, we've, us here on Zoom have been cut out about a third of this conversation. Missing a lot of the meat. I think I understand what's going on. I did catch, your passion, Dennis, on why we think that we should have all of this and everything else. I did hear clearly, and if you listen to yourself, you did bring up that the problem we have is operations. It's not in the CIP. Here's the problem you have with this. You're building a firehouse that is this is a fixed cost and you're not going to see it till 2024 or whatever, 2029 or whatever. But what about the operations it goes with? That hasn't been addressed. That hasn't been in there. And as you look at the thing, we've cut out people because they're trying to hire people in, you know, what's going on. There's other questions when you come into the operations, and here's where I ask that, do we need the firehouse that they have? What is it really fire? Or is it the EMS that we're trying to house? Do we need 9 or 4 or whatever number of bays we have for a couple of ambulances to reach out to the communities that we're calling on outside of Hartford on EMS? And what was asked too in trying to look at the operations costs and to keep operations costs down for the long term is it feasible to even consider some of the outsourcing of some of the services, building, I'm not saying take it out, but building a smaller version that we could turn around and, you know, if it's renting or how it works with the outsourcing facility, that might be something we're looking at. So I do appreciate your passion. I do appreciate where you're going. And you know, and as 9 of us have to vote for this, you know, we have to vote one step further than just, yes, we agreed to this at this point, but we hit the perfect storm. We hit this. What's to say the perfect storm doesn't continue going, right? What are we doing? So we made some substantial cuts. We're going to charge people fees on stuff that they're using, which is great. You know, and those are great, but where do we, you know, what's not in there is what the extra cost is going to be. So in 2029, when we have this fire station up and running and we have how many people in there and what's the added cost to the city when it comes to the operations. And again, we are going out and we are selling our services to a multiple of the smaller communities that don't have it or can't fund it or won't fund it, and we're going out there and calling them, and at the same time we are putting stress on our residents as we're running around the countryside. So, you know, I'm just saying, yes, I don't disagree. I was on part of those votes. We did do that. We were skeptical when we did pass it. We were waiting to see what it all came from. And yes, we did ask, what's the next step if we're going to build the perfect Taj Mahal? What does that look like, right? But we're at a position here where things aren't going to get cheaper. The building's not going to get cheaper. Our operation costs and everything that we have going today is not going to get any cheaper. Are we going to keep raising funds until we can't, you know, we're going to put ourselves out of business with rec center programs and stuff like that. So once again, it's a big ticket item that's going to create right now. Yeah, you know, we're probably pretty good. And if we weren't in a situation where we had all these surprises with the operations costs, we would probably be okay with it. But we have more information. Light has been shed on. So I think, you know, it's not that we're trying to back out of it. It's we're trying to make sense of what we have and what the big push is going to be, and what can the city really take? Do you want growth? We keep raising taxes. You know, with the referendums that we had through the school, we had another one. This isn't one that we're going to raise the referendum and then we're going to raise a levy and then it's going to go back down. Once it's done, it's done. So again, I appreciate your passion. I appreciate you wanting to get this thing built. I appreciate all that you've said, but we have more information now than we ever had. And we have to think at this point on what direction do we want to go and what do we have to go? And maybe $4.9 million is only an EMS building in 4 years down the road when we really need it. And we're at a point where we have to staff something like that.
Well, I think that additional information we have isn't enough to say that this isn't worth doing and this isn't the right time to do it. I think as the city of Hartford, we've always looked long-term And doing projects like this sets the city up in a good position for years to come. Like I said, we're going to have a bad year here and there where taxes are going to have to be raised, but I firmly believe that we'll have another stretch where we won't need to raise taxes again. Like the last 15 years that we've had. People have had it pretty good, but every once in a while, we have to do these corrections, and I think this is a good thing for the city of Hartford. Justin?
Yeah, but we went into this, if you remember
Joe
correctly,
Justin,
we haven't had any new buildings, new houses, and now we have 3 or 4 subdivisions going in.
And that'll help.
You know, we got to come in. We
There you
hope.
go.
We hope.
What's the action here? Like, does somebody have to make a motion to amend the CIP, or can I make a motion to not amend it? Like, what?
So again, what you would do is, because how it's stated in there is a consideration to amend the approved 2026-2030 CIP budget. And then look for someone, if they're going to have a motion, look to see if there's a second, and then see if you've got a 2/3 vote to pass it. And if so, then in that discussion, you have to determine, then come back and say, what is it that you want to remove from the CIP budget? So again, that'd be a part of your motion, so.
So can he make a motion like he said?
You can amend, make a motion to amend the budget, to remove an item, to add to an item, to whatever you want. But again, you have to get a 3/4 vote to pass it.
But his suggestion was to motion not to amend it.
No, that would not be, there's no such thing as that motion. You walk away, it automatically doesn't get amended.
Can we motion to table this?
I'd rather not.
I mean, you can, but pretty soon we have to go to
Yeah,
bonding.
I know, I'm just asking a question.
Well, we were wondering that to table it to see about the grant.
That's what I'm,
Right.
But the grant is, the timing on the grant is not good with our bond
I think we should just get to the rodeo, and if somebody wants to make a motion to amend it, let's do it, and let's just see what the vote is.
You absolutely can. Now, keep in mind, you can always come back in 2 meetings and amend your budget again. I mean,
Sure.
but again, I really want to be clear about this, and this is my last step onto the soapbox. We need clear direction.
Yeah.
This is not clear direction. This is a direction of, we want to do this, put the effort into it, put the money into it, $811,000 spent, and now people are getting cold feet. And I'm okay, but make the motion, make your decision so that we know, we have clear direction as a staff. And as you see behind me, my entire department heads are all here tonight, including members of the fire and police department, are here to again, listen for the clear direction given by this council.
Jeff?
I get where you're coming from, but I'll take a little exception to that. Is that, because I've been here since the beginning of this, right? Maybe not 1950, when they were talking about the old firehouse, but it's, the tough thing about this is, right, I'm 100% in on a fire station, right, firehouse. What I'm not in is that numbers thrown around at 2.5 million going to 5 million all of a sudden, that big jump. I'm not into that. That's the thing that's really tough for me to understand and get my arms around, right? So, I mean, I've been a big supporter, right, for the last 10 years that I've been on the council and another 3 to go, right, of this. But when it starts getting into, like, all of a sudden we get a CIP number that all of a sudden starts jumping dramatically, it's hard to get your arms around it. So I'm going to take a little exception, Steve, respectively of that, is that, yes, we put 800,000, which I believe most of us on this council were really into and really for. But then when all of a sudden you get to a $5 million number, it's a tough one, right? And it's tough for all of us. You can hear the discussion that we're having here, right? So, I mean, I'm for it, but I'm not too sure that I would amend it somehow, the CIP, right? So it's going to be a tough vote for me on this one, but $5 million is a lot of money, right? Especially when we were budgeting 2.5 for a long time. So that's my take on it.
well, what Steve just said is we could just again, move forward with this as it is, and then we can always come back to it and change it if we have to.
Sure.
Just to move the process on. So I think, that's a possibility.
We need to send a message out here.
Yeah, that,
Sure.
Like I said, and you're in business too, it's not going to get better. So we waited, 3 years or whatever, came from 2.5, now it's a 4.5. Well, Wayne threw out some numbers, and by the way, Wayne, they're going to be worse than that.
Sure.
The longer we wait. Believe it or not, we could build a Taj Mahal Fire Department. It could be twice this much money. As a building committee member on this, I've seen some of the plans, and boy, we've already thinned out some stuff. And like I said, here we sit at 4.9, and it's hard to stay there with building a decent firehouse because, like I said, in the city of Hartford, we do things long-term, we do them well. I don't want to do this halfway. Because then here we are, especially this type of building we're building. It's a steel building as opposed to a masonry building, which is less cost anyway, but the steel building also acts as the structure of the building. So adding to the building at any point after this is extremely difficult and extremely expensive. So I kind of want to do this right the first time so I don't have to come back here and, have Tony explain why we have to do this and why that costs so much. So yes, we're at a tough impasse, but like I said, I think we're heading in the right direction. Just because we hit a tough spot, our price is going to increase? Sure they are. But like I said, I think we have things coming down the pike that's going to solidify where we are as a city again. Go ahead.
All right, just to make this, to move on, I think we've discussed it enough. I do appreciate it with everybody, right? So I'll make a motion to amend, just to get this thing rolling, to see where we're going, right?
And can I ask what you're amending it to?
Do I have to, do we?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to amend the budget, you're saying, I would amend the budget to
Firehouse.
remove something, add something, or
okay.
change
I'll
it.
make a motion that we want to amend to remove something. Do I have to be specific on what we want to?
Yes.
Probably.
Okay, then I'll just make it very easy then. I'll make the motion to amend to remove the firehouse.
I'll second that.
There you go.
There's a motion and a second.
Motion by Alderperson Turchi, seconded by Alderperson Curley to amend the approved 2026-2030 CIP budget to remove the firehouse.
Because we need a 3/4 vote, I ask that we do a roll call vote, please.
Alderperson Garza,
No.
Alderperson Savage,
Yes.
Alderperson Kohler,
Aye.
Alderperson Rusniak,
No.
Alderperson Turchi,
Aye.
Alderperson Curley,
Aye.
Alderperson Waldvogel,
Aye.
Alderperson Petchacek,
aye.
Alderperson Webb,
No.
3 noes, 6 yeses.
So you got your 2/3. So in that, we will let the designer know that we will finish the design. You've already paid for that or contracted for that. And then the design will be held until such time as the council comes back with a new decision as to when they want to build the firehouse.
All right, moving on to item number 2 under the city administrator's report, the approve the bid of Center Street reconstruction. Steve? Or are you going to have Chris?
Okay, Center Street reconstruction, that's our second CIP reconstruction project for this year. The limits are from High Street to Rossman Street, approximately 700 feet of full roadway reconstruction. On March 26th, we received 3 bids. Low bidder just under $636,000 with Lalonde Contractors, who's also the contractor on Bud Street that was bid earlier this year. We worked with them last year on the East Jackson Street Alley project as well. The engineering estimate was $720,000 for this project. And in accordance with Resolution 3768, staff recommends to award Center Street Reconstruction Project to Lalonde in the amount of $635,688.76. That I can take any questions.
All right, any questions for Chris? Thanks, Chris. If not, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Alderperson Pekacek, second by Alderperson Garza.
Motion by Alderperson Pekacek, seconded by Alderperson Garza, approving the bid for the Center Street reconstruction.
Any final discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thanks, Chris. Item number 3 is discussion and consideration to authorize the public bidding of the partial extension of Innovation Way from Western Drive with an alternate bid option to include the entire roadway extension. Chris?
Steve, do you want to exhibit up for this one?
I can. So I'll start with this one again. As a part of the DJS development that'll be in the industrial park, we need to get them access to that as a part of the developers agreement, which you've already approved. And so this would be the construction and extension of Western Drive to the west, we believe it is. Basically to the property line of, or the western property line of DJS, where their property will go. The estimated cost is $1.7 million. This includes extending the water all the way to Innovation Way. Does not include the finishing of that road, but only just the water had to be extended the whole way to loop it. So with this, again, we would bid then to do the base bid would be for Western Drive extension, again, to that edge of the property for DJS, and then with a additional option of extending the road the entire way. Our estimate right now by our engineers, MSA has done this and said it'd be roughly around $3.3 million. So once we got the bids back, the council can then decide which direction they want to go, if they want to do it all at once or do it in piecework. Again, obviously, there's some savings with with doing it all together. And also the fact is, if we have a developer's agreement in hand of the northern portion of this property, again, between that and the DJS property, it would be paying off the debt through the TID 14.
So this item is just to authorize going out for bid with the approach of a base bid as shown in red and the alternate for the full build out in yellow.
Thanks, Chris. Any final questions for Chris? Okay, then I'd entertain a motion.
Motion 2.
Motion by Alderperson Turchi, second by Alderperson Webb.
Sorry, what was the motion?
It's item number 3, the discussion and consideration to authorize the public bidding of the partial extension of Innovation Way from Western Drive with alternate bid option to include the entire roadway extension.
Yeah, who made the motions? Sorry.
Alderperson Turchi, seconded by Alderperson Webb.
Motion by Alderperson Turchi, seconded by Alderperson Webb, authorizing the public bidding of the partial extension of Innovation Way from Western Drive with an alternate bid option to include the entire roadway extension.
All right. Any final questions or comments? We'll just give the guys a second.
They moved quick. It's good to see.
All right. So anyway, back to where we were. Any final questions or comments before the vote?
Yeah, just
Tony?
if we could get the whole thing, that'd be awesome because it could be all done at once instead of piecemeal. That'd be great. So hope the bid comes out great.
All right. Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Item 4, under the city administrator's report, the review of operational reductions in expenses and increases in revenues for 2027. Steve?
So at the last city council meeting, we had presented the concept and the calculation that we were having a budget shortfall deficit for 2027 and beyond. For 2027 alone, it was $915,666. At that time, we had asked the council if they would be willing to go to referendum in the month of August at the next election. The council gave clear direction that they wanted us to come back with a list of all expenses, operational expenses, and ideas that the staff would come up with that possibly would help us to offset this budget deficit. So what we've done, as you all received, is a hefty list of items in which we could either A, increase revenues, or B, decrease expenses through a myriad of ways. The first list that was presented to you was for that was items in which the staff approved or believed that would be supported by staff. And then the other items, and that total for those items that we presented was $729,265 that could offset the deficit. And then there was additional ones in the back of your packet that basically were additional ideas or things that we looked into that we either A, we didn't support, or again, B, made no financial sense to do. So with that, you received a copy of it tonight. The reason that we have all the department heads here is you got a chance, 5 days to review this information. And so if anyone has any questions, we will not be voting on this tonight. You'll be bringing this back up at the meeting next week on Tuesday. So you can take it back to your constituents and ask them if they're okay with some of these proposals. But again, tonight, I'm offering you the opportunity, because we don't normally have all of our department heads at a meeting unless they have a presentation for some other reason, to answer any questions you may have on the proposals. I'll go through our list, but go ahead, Justin.
Right.
Did you want to go first?
Yeah, mine will be really
Sure.
short. Steve, I want to thank you and your staff for putting this together, right? I know this is hard, right? It's not easy to go through line by line and trying to figure things out. So I want to give a kudos to you and your staff. No matter if it goes to referendum or not, you have to go through this exercise. So,
Thank you.
Can I ask like a logistical question? Like, we have the first subset that's like all fives, like
Yep.
staff agrees, and that's 729,000, like estimated, I'm assuming, right? Let's say we approved all of those things at the next meeting. We're still like 200 grand-ish short of the like amount for 2026.
2027.
Sorry, 2027. Is there like a way to bridge the gap there so that addresses at least 2027? Or would we need to go through the other items that are in the other bucket and put together a menu of, sort of add a few other things to get us all the way to that number?
The answer to the question is exactly that. So what I would recommend is you take a look at the final, again, the proposal of those items in which we felt were beneficial, and make sure that you're okay with every one of them. If you all vote on it, I assume that you're giving us clear directions, that you're ready to go to the mat for us with your constituents, that, yes, I voted for this, and yes, I'm in support of it. Then the second thing is that, as you said, we're about 200 short. Take a look at the second list, which is provided in there, and then the supporting documents behind there, and say, okay, of those, which ones are you most in support of? I can tell you which ones probably are the easiest ones. In other words, don't impact current level of service, and which ones will get you on the front page of the paper.
I guess this is the follow-up onto my question is, for that meeting next Tuesday, what would be helpful is we have all these 5s that everybody agrees to. Can you tack on the recommended ones from the bottom part, in your opinion, to get us to the final number? Because I think, like, we can go through and pick and choose these, and we can have a 4-hour meeting that I really don't want to have. Instead, it would be helpful to have something in front of us, like option A, option B, that gets us to that full number, at least for 2027. And I think, like, I would trust your guidance on things that are going to get us, like, whacked with a stick, and things that, like, will also get your staff to come and hit us with a stick. So that's my request.
I agree.
I am fine to do that. I can give you I have it. I'm not willing to share it right now. But, if you look at some of these, that will not reduce existing staffing, but would save us some money. Obviously, we have in the budget to hire additional 2.5 staff, which everyone in this room has approved now twice, but for the fire department. Now, so moving forward, if we don't hire the additional staff and continue on the direction we're in right now with the 11 full-time staff and then paid on call, that by itself would put you up over that number. Other ones that, again, some of the minor things, I think it's just smart ideas. And some of them, like, example, one of the things on here we talked about is reducing library hours. What does that do for you? Or your grandkids? Or your neighbors? How are you going to handle that phone call when you get it that you voted to lower those hours at the library? Or, and again, we've looked at, and to answer the question of Alderperson Kohler, I'm glad to share this information. Unfortunately, I had a full room of firefighters that just went out for a roof fire to address that right now. But, oh, there we go. We have looked into the privatization of EMS. You don't have that sheet because we received one quote, I think, this morning. And the other quote, they're very hesitant about giving, but we know what they're currently getting. So we did receive a verbal from Bell Ambulance. Bell's based out of Milwaukee, for those of you who don't know. Bell asked how many ambulances we would need, and based on call volume, it's about 2.5, they estimated. That would start us off at $2.5 million a year. That's just quadrupled your debt.
Sure.
So Bell's not an option. Then we looked at Lifestar. Lifestar is which one that Alderperson Kohler brought up because they have the contract with the Slinger. They got the great deal, and everyone's been trying to get it since. And I will tell you a little bit about the ambulance service and the history of ambulance service. Ambulance service used to be free because they would make money off the ambulance call. Then Medicare stopped paying a reasonable amount. You heard about this in the history of the fire and EMS if you went to that banquet. Then fire departments started getting subsidized by hospitals. Well, if you bring them to my hospital, I don't mind paying for the trip. And then that stopped. Hospitals stopped doing that. And now other communities start doing it for you. And again, they would just take the revenue off of that. That's not happening anymore. So the most recent contract we were able to pull from Lifestar was the one that they just did with 2 communities, which I am very intimately involved in, which is Amro and Winnet County, where I was previously at. The contract for Western Winnebago County was given to them, and they pay a supplement to Lifestar of $41.76 per person, per capita. Now, per capita, 41, and you multiply that times 16,083, which says on our sign, that's over $700,000. $640,000. We don't currently that doesn't cost us right now. Our net is 300 and some. Maybe it's 400,000. But that doesn't put us in the right step forward. So we have looked into that, and again, the only reason you don't have it in paper is because they're both are very hesitant about putting that number out there. But we know, but Bell was again verbally able to tell us they'll get us something in writing, and again, we'll see what in written what Lifestar comes back at. But we know what their most recent contract for Western Winnebago County was.
And this is perfect, and thank you, Steve, for doing that. Like I said, I mean, these are things that we asked. What are some of the options? I did hear about the good deal. Apparently, that didn't realize that was a good deal and not the regular deal. So I thank you for that, and it's something that as a group we need to consider and or throw out, right? But now we have the facts on that. So thank you. I'm anxious to stop, but I do appreciate you guys digging in and looking that up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dean?
Yes.
Our squad cars are on a 3-year recycle rotation, right?
Correct.
What if we went to 4 years? The chief's in the back. What kind of mileage is on vehicles 3 and 5 right now? Those are the ones that are due for replacement next year. How many miles are on those right now?
Not many, 40,000.
So they could go another year.
You have a 3-year warranty on those vehicles.
Yeah.
Those vehicles are extremely expensive to fix because so much goes wrong. Squad cars aren't about miles. Squad cars are about engine hours. And they are running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so the engine hours on those vehicles, that's why we buy them for 30, we sell them for 10, 15,000, probably closer to 10, 3 years later, because they're not worth nearly as much because of the engine hours. The history, and Jeff and Wayne and you guys remember all this. We were at that. And remember when Dave was here and Dave would say, no, we're sticking to 2-year. And Dave would not move because, anyways, so then finally, when Dave left, Scott said, all right, we'll try the 3-year because Washington County does the 3-year. And so anyways, we went to the 3-year, but that's the extent of the warranty. After 3 years, then all of a sudden you're paying for themselves, and they are not cheap to fix.
Thanks for addressing that. Jeff?
So a question,
Jeff.
we're able to use those cars within the city for some reasons, as well as giving up to one of the state personal vehicle, and we're maintaining the car as a city. We're doing that, and what I'm going with this with Alderman Curley is what is a year? So the warranty's over.
It's the use of the vehicle. It's no longer being used 24/7.
Well, so okay, Dennis, I get that. But the point comes down to, though, is another year on a vehicle. Are we going to incur all those costs, or are the cars still good to go because we're still using them? That's the point I have with this. We're giving them away to staff members. Can we use them one more year? And I think that's what Alderman Curley was asking, is what is that delta where it does become a negative?
Yeah, just to correct, we don't give away anything. We sell them to our other departments, so that other department has to literally take money out of their budget to pay the police department so that they have money to offset the cost of the new one. But that being said, was Rich in the audience? Rich? Our police department normally does do a cost to maintain on all of our vehicles, no matter if it's a squad car or a dump truck or whatever, and they have details on when that price per year dramatically increases, and again, based on just simply the warranty coming off, and all of a sudden the thing starts falling apart. We have again. statistically shown that the 3 years is the maximum amount you're going to want to try to get out of there. And I'll let Rich talk more about that.
So one of the things to consider is actually we switched to the 3-year rotation. So the 2 vehicles that we replaced were left from our 2-year rotation. So they had 40,000 miles on them. Any vehicle we have now that we would sell in '27, it will be on the 3-year rotation. We'll have over 60,000 miles. We currently have an extended warranty for those vehicles, which covers us to 60,000. And we're looking at, we're expecting to exceed that mileage by the 3rd quarter of this year. So we'll be working a quarter of this year alone in our 3-year rotation, being outside of that warranty.
Jeff?
I got 2 things to put to bed, the 2-year versus 3-year. I was here, Steve. We talked about it a lot. We took a leap of faith to get to the 3-year. There was a lot of study and so forth. I'm in favor of the 3-year. Okay, so.
And not extending it, I'm assuming?
Exactly.
Okay.
4 or whatever.
And your
right?
second?
My second thing is more prevalent is, so we're talking about 2027. You're gonna have to put a budget together for it. Sounds like we got a gap of about $200,000. Okay, don't know if that warrants going to a referendum or not. We'll talk about that maybe next meeting. My question is that when we go to if we have to go to referendum, what's 2028 look like? Do we have to go to referendum again? And
So,
29, if this gap continues?
Yeah,
do we have
so-
to go every year to referendum? That's my concern and my question.
Yep. So we're way ahead of you. So what we'd look to do is this. So after the meeting next week, in which we look for clear direction from the council of what you want to do as far as abilities to raise revenue or decrease expenses. And if you're good with that, we'll take a look at, we'll put those all in the 4-year budget. We have a 4-year budget that we put together. And then we'll see, what does that equate to? What does that change? And then we'll be able to come back and say, okay, with that, and assuming everything else stays the same, this is what it looks like as far as our gap in 28, 29, and 30. And then if you understand how the numbers would work, if your gap is like this and it continues to go up, you need to meet halfway in the middle, right? And that will not only cover you, because the number is the same, but that number in the middle will get you some wiggle room in the first 2 years, but then be able to capture that in the last 2 years. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give us the room we need for 4 years, 2030. That's what we're trying to get to. So that being said, if you agree to those first page and then come up with one other thing in there to get the 900,000, we'll put that into the budget after that, and then we'll come back and say, okay, here's what it looks like for the following year, 28, 29, and 30. And then unless you want to cut something else or pick another item off the list, then we'll have to go, okay, well then, and here's what the numbers look like. And to get us to that midpoint between now and 2030, here's what the referendum would have to look like. And here's what it would add to the tax dollar. And here's what it would, things like that.
And with that,
Can I follow up with that? Is it too early to ask Steve, is that even if if it's a $200,000 gap and you did your projection out to 4 years, is it your would it be your recommendation that we have to? Or do you think we can weather the storm over the next 4 years? What's your gut feeling on this as we get into next week?
My gut feeling is, for several reasons. I mean, if I'm throwing all of the things that come to my mind regarding how this is going to change, I don't know a way you can get around this without going to referendum at some point in time. Now, I can get you to 28 or 27, excuse me, but then you're going to have to make the decision in 28 if you want to go to referendum for 29 and 30. I might be able to, again, if you pick another one of these items off this list and go, okay, you You want to close the library? That saves me $784,000. You have a very big open building, or we sell it to somebody to put up a really big coffee shop or something, I don't know. But anyways, the bottom line is there's always possibilities. It's the question of what do you believe as representatives of your constituents you get the least amount of feedback from?
No, I
Your
mean,
actions.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that we might be able to close the gap for a year, but going out even further, it gets cloudier.
I'm looking
Right?
at
Yeah.
looking at 4 years. I'd love to have a solution for 4 years. And then literally what you're doing, just so everybody understands, is you're setting your budget for the next 4 years. The department would be told, here's the amount of money you're going to get. Make it fit. Now, if something great happens, if something dramatic happens, then they may have a little more additional cash. But right now, using the best technology that we have and the best calculations that we can, this is the best we can do.
Dean?
Anything new on the levy limits?
No. The recent bill that was brought forward to the state was originally proposed by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. That has been added in by so many poison pills that make it such that even the league will not back it. Now, again, some of the things they want to do is say, okay, police and fire are out of the levy limit calculation, okay? Because we know they have to grow, okay? Believe it or not, you guys are not getting younger, and you're going to use the ambulance service more. And when you do, it's going to cost me more. So the bottom line is the fact of our growth in fire and EMS primarily, and police, are going to continue to grow. And way beyond the opportunity for us to capture that through net new construction. So because of that, I mean, it's just a foregone conclusion. If we could pull those out, that would be great, but I don't think they're going to do it.
Justin?
So then, what's going to be put in front of us at the meeting next week? Is it like, here's how we reduce, here's how we fix the budget gap for 2027, or does it go road A and fix budget gap, or go road B and let's just go to referendum and be done with it?
It would be, I need clear direction from the council, full council, that these are the items in which you're saying, yep, go with this, and add this to get your $911,000. Then I will be able to take your clear direction, put it into the calculations, figure out your next 4 gaps, or next 3 gaps for 28, 29, 30. And then you can decide, well, do we want to keep cutting? Or are we willing to say, let's go to referendum to ask to meet us halfway, and we've cut 911,000, now we're going to ask for, whatever it is to clear the gap for the next 4 years.
I mean, I guess
So next week, all you're going to do is give me direction as far as which ones you already accept to get me through 27, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. And, I mean, there is some kind of like timing element to the referendum,
Well, I mean, that's why time is of the essence. And again, I know some of you were giving me the evil eye last week, our last meeting, when I said we were going to August, because if we go to November, you're going to be approving 2 budgets in October, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Because one, that if the referendum passes, and one if it doesn't pass. And you're publishing 2 budgets, one if it passes and one if it doesn't pass. We wouldn't be the first community to ever do that, but it's just not, I mean, it's a very unusual way to do it. But anyways, so we go into November, so we'd still like to we have to get something on the books by the last meeting in May, if you want to have it on the ballot for August. But if you're really sold on it has to be November, then we've got 2 more months.
I guess my point was, like, there was just a referendum and a tax increase related to the schools that some people don't necessarily like very much. And having us go out to referendum not this year, but in 2028 makes some difference in giving some like breathing room between those. Like that was my point.
You know, one thing that has been brought up a lot is the fact of the school referendum got passed last year and your taxes went up. Well, that's unfortunately not correct. Your taxes went up because the state decided to pull more of its funding to schools. Last year alone, this elementary school, Joint One, got pulled $1.4 million in state funding. Meanwhile, the amount of money that they had to pay for kids to transfer to a private school, it's called the Vulture Program, dramatically increased. So revenues increase and expenditures, revenues decrease, expenditures increase. That was all done by the state. And by the way, the state's now sitting there wondering what to do with their surplus. I wonder why. Anyways, the bottom line is the fact of if we wait till everything's rosy with the school because everything's rosy with the state, you'll be here forever, dude. So, I mean, I think we can't wait till things are great with the school. We are our own entity. And I know people are going to scream and yell because, yes, they screamed and yelled at my finance staff when they had to pay their taxes because the school had to raise taxes because of the state pulling their funding.
And we just collect them.
You know?
Yep. Jeff?
So I'll make a suggestion and see if you're willing to this, right? We have approximately $700,000, right?
I mean, if you agree to all those points that we
right?
made.
Yeah, and it's a put and takes, but this is a budgeting process, right?
Yep.
So it's just a budgeting, and I'm not trying to discount it, it's a budgeting exercise, but what I'd really like to see is that the model, right? Right, we can go line by line and we can say, yeah, the 700,000, whatever we do there, right? But the model really is that how do we get to 2030? And I'd really like to see that model and really discuss that next week instead of saying, yeah, we agree on all 700,000. Because to me, what I'm getting the vibe here is that we might be able to save 2027 and not go to referendum, but it doesn't look like there's headwinds to get to 2030.
Well,
But I'd
why
like to see that model to discuss that model, right?
Why wouldn't we, I mean, I agree with that, but I think we should get over the 2027 hump, and then we can do the next 3 years at some other meeting, so we're not like mixing one set of things with another. Like, we should get over the immediate hump, which is like, what do we do about 2027? Are we gonna go to referendum in August? Which is get us to that 900,000, and then after that, we can have a model discussion with him about the next 3 years and how can we get to it? Can we do that? Can we not? If we can't, do we need to go to referendum? Like, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is, and again, that's why the process that I was hoping to go through tonight is the fact of just presenting the ideas. Again, you've all had them for 5 days to be able to review them. And give me clear directions that you're okay with this, because again, some of these are not going to be comfortable to you or your constituents. You will get calls. And I hope you have the answers to those calls, because I'm not taking them. I mean, that's unfortunately what you get paid the big bucks for. But
Call the mayor.
anyways, at the end of the day, when I want to make sure that this council is 100% behind those first lines, and if you are, then I can build on that to give you the second line, third line, and fourth line, so that again you can then make the decision. Yes, I'm willing to cut all the rest of the stuff, or yes, I'm willing to go to referendum for it. So the plan, yep, that's a part of it, but let me make sure first you're ready to go with the first line of items.
And again, that's on next week's agenda.
Correct.
All right. Dean?
Steve, you've got one item under the administrative. It's the it's the 300 and, what is that? I can't read that.
329.
Yeah, the elimination of,
Coverage for retirees after age 65.
yeah.
Insurance coverage, yeah.
Why aren't they on Medicare?
There's the $1 million question.
I mean,
so let me go through the wording quickly. In a employee handbook, it states upon retirement, those who were hired prior to 2007 can stay on our health insurance, and they'll get the same health insurance, not pay for any premium contributions, even though our current employees now pay 3%. And they can do so till the age of 65. There has been some question as to well, what does that mean? What if I'm 65 but my wife is still 63? Can we both stay on till she turns 65? Okay. Then there's others that, well, now after 65, it also states that you can stay on, but you have to pay COBRA rates, 102% of premium. Unfortunately, 102% of premium does not cover all my costs. And as Tori has been phenomenal in uncovering some of our cost problems, is the fact of we've got retirees or people who have left who are on our insurance that have been on till death, 86. They have Medicare, and they use us as a supplement. And they pay 102% of a premium of $29,000. Now, it's completely ludicrous of why they do that, but they do it because they've always done it, and they don't like to change. When you get old, Dean, you'll realize what that's about. But anyways, so this is one of the things that we just need to clear up and clean out and say, 65, you're done. If your spouse is older than you, they're done at 65. You're in a single plan. We need to clean this up and get this off, because at the end of the day, I can't live off the past. I need to live for the future. Because you know what? Nobody got up this morning and turned on the water and wondered how much our retirees are doing with the water they get. All they care about is the water that they get today.
Just a couple quick questions, is that okay? I mean, I know it's getting late.
Sure, and this is why the department heads are here.
Yeah. Well, while the chief was up here, I had a couple quick questions.
Yep.
There were three items that were not supported. It was the elimination of the captain's position, elimination of the detective sergeant positions, and then eliminate of a police officer. Certainly, I'm not in favor really of any of those either, but is there any between the captain and the sergeant, is there any combined duties to make just that one position, and or is that going to be problematic for you? And then, can you eliminate one police officer for this year? Just 1 year as we maybe get over this hump and reassess as we move forward.
Go ahead.
So to your first point, the captain and the detective sergeant spot, those were created to decrease the span of control. So they came from a point where we had 2 lieutenants and the chief. So as the chief, the responsibility is the direct responsibility for supervision of those 2 lieutenants, interfered with the ability to do other responsibilities of that chief's role. That's why the captain's position was created. In that role, the captain took over supervision of the Investigations Bureau. We've had, so I started here in 2001. We've had 2 detectives since 2001 when we had a population of 11,000. The detective sergeant's role was created to add investigative capability to that, and as a half measure, because it's half investigations, half administrative. Part of that other side of that was we actually eliminated a civilian position that those responsibilities were taken on by the detective sergeant. So those are options. You're going to significantly impact the workload of the 2 lieutenants and myself as far as, my capability to do my job.
And one other thing I'll add to this is the fact of the captain position was a position that we had here for many, many decades. And then when we had a financial issue, everybody was asked to cut positions. And at that time, I don't remember who the chief was. It could have been Groves. But anyways, he cut the position at that time. But it didn't mean that the workload wasn't there. It was spread out. So the idea was there was a quasi-agreement that with a former individual that if we got rid of dispatch and we save all that money from police department, they could then use it for to put back the positions in which were taken away. Now, the police department, to their defense, has been one of the departments that has the least amount of annual increase. Their annual increase on the levy, that's revenues versus expenditures, is going up about 1.4% annually over the last like 5 to 7 years. That's extremely low. I can swallow 1.4%. I can't swallow 3.5%, 4%. So credit to the police department, Rich and Scott and Dave.
So the other part you asked about was eliminating a position for 1 year. So currently, we have 18 patrol officers. One is an SRO, as a school resource officer, and then one is assigned to the drug investigation unit for the county. So if we eliminated one position, I would pull that officer out of that assignment to the drug unit.
Okay.
So if I eliminate a position, we're in a competitive market. Can I get another officer qualified with that level of experience? Right now, we're poaching from other agencies. So can it be done? Yeah, I mean, it's going to negatively impact the service that we provide.
Okay.
And with any of these, with police and fire, obviously, I mean, if you watch Milwaukee news, if you want to stir up people, tell them you're cutting police and fire. Am I right? You live down in the Milwaukee metro area.
Loved it.
So, I mean, that again, you have to think about how that's going to play with your constituents.
We don't live in Milwaukee, though. We live in Hartford.
Yeah, and
then, is it any better?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's why we moved.
I grew up in Milwaukee.
I just wanted to get some thought as again, we're being asked to do that. So, okay, thank you for that. And then I think with Tim, is Tim back there for, one of the things that when you shift services off of your tax bill, and then become fees, then that's the one little less thing you can deduct on your taxes. So this is really, the monthly fee for the garbage, to put that on there, what is that, like, what was that calculated per household?
Yeah, so I will take this one for Tim because I actually assisted him with this. We obviously already have recycling on your monthly fees.
Right.
On your utility bill, which Brian loves when I say it's called a utility bill. But anyways, the garbage is one of those items which we talk about, which is one of the things we look at is what is the growth factor of those departments on the levy? And if it's totally uncontrollable, we need to figure out a way to control it, right? Garbage and recycling are two of those things because we subcontract.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about what's the efficiency of subcontracting? Well, there's not an efficiency there because they can raise it as much as they want. If you don't think right now they're attaching a pretty large fuel surcharge because fuel is over $4 for them, absolutely. So that's something we don't control. So garbage, moving it to a fee, much like we did stormwater, which again is out of control because of DNR, that's a situation which we have to look at because we can't control that fee in the next 3 years. And if it continues to go up 3 to 4%, and that's what it's been. Yeah, I can't swallow 3 to 4% increase.
Okay, so my question.
The price per, I'm sorry, price per house.
That was a lot of verbiage for
$10.
How much? About $10?
Roughly $10 a month.
So $120 per year that you can't deduct on your taxes if it was just on the tax roll. Okay,
that's correct.
That's what I'm asking. Whew, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Thank every one of them for coming.
Yes.
I ask if anyone has any other questions for next week, please request them to come to the next meeting too, because they're here, but only if you really have questions for them.
Thank every one of them for coming.
And staying.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second
Great
that.
idea.
We have a motion to adjourn by Alderperson Webb and a second by Alderperson Turchi.
Motion by Alderperson Webb, seconded by Alderperson Turchi to adjourn at 9:13 PM.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.